Hi, I'm Kels from my Thermomix Adventures. Now we're going to make a milk bread. This is one of my children's favourite breads and it rarely makes it to the table in one piece because they love eating it warm. So first of all, we've got 300 grams of milk. I know you're used to using millilitres with liquid, but that's fine. It's in grams on the Thermomix. So the weighing scales are in the Thermomix. I've pre-weighed just because we're filming this and it's just a little bit quicker me pre-weighing it than weighing it on the Thermomix. But normally when I'm cooking, I just weigh directly into my Thermomix. I've got 50 grams of unsalted butter. And then some dried instant yeast. I like using the Dove's Farm one, pretty much everything I do. So 2 teaspoons of dried yeast. You can use fresh yeast and most of the Thermomix recipes will tell you how much to do for dried and how much to do for your fresh yeast. And then we've got a little bit of sugar. So it says 20 to 60 grams of sugar. I tend to go for the middle if it's giving you a guide. In this case, I've just done 30. Otherwise, I find the bread can be a little bit too sweet for me. And then we're going to put the lid on. And it's going to warm that milk and the yeast just to help activate the yeast with the sugar. And that's warming at 37 degrees for 3 minutes. This is a cookie dough recipe, so my Thermomix has set everything for me. So that sound tells me that that part of the recipe is completed. And it's actually told me on the screen that while that was going on, to grease a bowl to put your dough in when it's finished. Now, just lightly grease a little bit of oil or butter or whatever you'd like, and then just rub around a bowl ready for your dough. Okay, so that's just preparing that. We'll come back to the recipe. So our milk, yeast and butter has warmed up and we're now going to put in bread flour, some salt, and then we're going to put the lid on and it's now going to go into the dough mode. So it's 3 minutes of kneading, and if you can hear the sound, it stops. That's because it's throwing the dough the other direction. It's mimicking hand kneading. About 3 minutes kneading on your Thermomix is equivalent to about 10 minutes hand kneading. So you'll notice your Thermomix is moving a little bit. When I'm doing slow cooking, if I'm cooking a super risotto, I'm happy to leave it safely on the bench and go away, have a glass of wine, relax, whatever you want to do. When I'm doing a smoothie or bread, I want to be near it because it could move around a little bit on your bench. So just for safety, stay near your Thermomix if you're doing bread or you're doing high-powered blending. So that's our dough, and then I'm just going to put it into our greased bowl and put some cling film on top. Now just a little tip is if you twiddle the base of the bowl like that, the blades move and it helps release the dough, and then I can just pick out any last little bits. Make the dough into a little ball. I'm going to leave it in this bowl with some cling film on top until it's doubled in size, depending on how warm your kitchen is and what the weather's like outside, 1 to 2 hours. And I'm just making it into a little ball, just tucking in the dough underneath, and then I just sort of give it a little turn, and I'm happy with that, and then cling film over the top. So you can see the difference. This is exactly the same recipe, and this is now doubled up, more than doubled. We'll take that out, pull it out of the bowl, and I'm going to now put this into sort of 3 equal sizes. Now what's really cool on the Thermomix, if you come back to the screen, it tells me to leave it to rest. It tells me to line a baking tray. And then we've actually got some pictures on the screen and even a video. So that's another thing that the TM6 has that older models don't have. You've actually got some video instructions on some of your recipes. So here's my dough. If I cut it into 3, just using a little dough scraper, you don't want to use sharp knives on these silicone mats because it can damage them. And I want to get roughly the same size balls of dough. If you want to be precise about it, I can actually measure using the Thermomix scales. And if I go out of this recipe onto our functions to scales, that's 280, 360, 300. So let's take a chunk off that onto there. Okay, so we got roughly similar size. They don't have to be exact. Now, what you're going to do is make sort of sausage shapes, roll it a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just squeezing to get a sort of sausage shape, and then you just want to roll them out a little bit so they're roughly even. These are going to rise again, and it doesn't matter if they're a bit messy. Okay, so you've got 3 ends. Put them together, give them a bit of a squidge, mush them together so they're connected, and then I just tuck over the top bit so it's a bit smoother. Okay, so I've got an end there, I've got 3 pieces. Now, stretch them out, and I like to try and do this relatively tight, so you're going to fold one over, over, and I sort of stretch and pull it over, stretch and pull it over until you've got a plait. And then we're going to do the same on this end as we did on the other end. We're going to connect these 3. So plait as far as you can, and then take the 3 ends, squish them together, and then you can just fold it and fold it under, and then that gives you that. Okay, now that's your milk bread ready for a second rise. And I've got one that I prepared earlier. Now you can see how much this has risen. And it's all started as this ball of dough. So this is going to rise, cling film over the top to give it its second rise. And we're at this stage here, which is ready to go in the oven. We're just going to do a little egg wash first. So this is just an egg that's been beaten, and then that's going to just be brushed on, and this will give it a nice brown top. And you can see those bits that were a bit bumpy, where I haven't rolled out the dough particularly carefully, have all just risen out. There we go. So this is going to go in the oven on 180 degrees. Now, on my Thermomix, it tells me 25 to 30 minutes. I have got the Thermomix sensor, so I'm actually going to use the sensor to tell me when it's ready. And I'm just going to pop that into the dough, say around here. Some of the newer TM6 recipes actually have the sensor built into the recipe, but I'm just going to go to the sensor on the function screen. And if I tap the temperature, I can select bread, and it's got basic dough or rich dough, and it actually says milk bread under rich dough, which is what we're making. So it's saying best results 92 degrees. I send that, and it's currently at 22 degrees. Once it's reached 92, it will beep and let me know it's ready to come out the oven. So this is going into the oven, and I've got one I made earlier. And here's our finished milk bread. One of the ways to check that it's cooked properly is to just give it a little knock, and it should give you a nice hollow sound, which that does.